The Galactic Council chamber hung suspended in the void, its vast crystalline dome reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. Inside, representatives from 100 worlds sat in tiered rings, their attention fixed on the small figure standing at the center of the chamber. Ambassador Talon of the Vani stood with shoulders slumped, exhaustion evident in every line of his frail body. His translucent skin, normally luminous with health, appeared dull and ashen. The six-fingered hands that had once worked miracles of healing now trembled as they gripped the podium. Honorable representatives. Talon's voice was soft but carried to every corner of the chamber. My people stand at the precipice of extinction. The Korak Empire advances through our outer colonies, their warships methodically reducing our worlds to ash. We are healers, not warriors. We have no weapons to match theirs, no armies to deploy. He paused, his large eyes scanning the assembled delegates. If we do nothing, my people die. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Vani were among the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, renowned for their medical knowledge and peaceful philosophy. Their healing techniques had saved countless lives across a dozen systems. Now, they faced annihilation at the hands of the Korak, a militaristic species bent on expansion through conquest. High Counselor Zev, a towering figure with iridescent scales, leaned forward. The Council sympathizes with your plight, Ambassador. But intervention risks drawing the Korak's wrath upon other worlds. Their military might exceeds that of any single member race. Perhaps, came a voice from the shadows of the upper tier. But not all races. Heads turned as diplomat Nara of the Kalari stepped into the light. The avian representative's feathers rippled with agitation. There exists a species on the galactic rim, isolated yet formidable. They call their homeworld Earth, but others know it as a death world. Death world, the term sent another ripple of unease through the chamber. A planet of extreme conditions, crushing gravity, toxic atmospheric events, relentless predators, and natural disasters that would devastate most civilized worlds. Its inhabitants have not only survived, but thrived under conditions that would kill most of us within hours. Projected images appeared above the central floor, sweeping storms with lightning fracturing the sky, towering waves crashing against shorelines, mountains spewing molten rock, and barren landscapes scorched by blistering heat. The humans of Earth have adapted to these conditions, Nara continued. They have developed remarkable physical resilience and technological innovation. Our long-range observations suggest they possess military capabilities unlike any we've encountered. High Counselor Zev's expression darkened. You propose contacting an unknown species with potentially dangerous capabilities? The risk is unacceptable. The risk of doing nothing is certain death for my people, Talon countered, desperation edging his voice. We have exhausted all diplomatic channels with the Korak. Emperor Vra has made his intentions clear. Total subjugation or extermination. Debate raged through the chamber for hours. Some representatives argued that the Vani's plight, while tragic, did not justify the risk of introducing a potentially volatile new player to galactic politics. Others insisted that the Council's founding principle of mutual protection demanded action. Finally, Counselor Zev called for a vote. The chamber fell silent as representatives cast their decisions. The final tally appeared overhead, by the narrowest of margins. The motion passed. It is decided, Zev announced, voice heavy with the weight of consequence. We will broadcast an emergency signal to Earth, with a complete explanation of the Vani situation and a request for aid. He turned to Ambassador Talon. We must be clear that we cannot predict how these humans will respond. Their intervention may bring consequences none of us can foresee. Talon bowed deeply. When facing extinction, one cannot be particular about saviors. As the signal launched into the void, none in the council chamber could have predicted the storm they had just unleashed. Captain Elise Reed stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, gazing at the curved horizon of the gas giant they were using to mask their energy signature. At 42, Reed had spent more than half her life in space, rising through Earth Command's ranks with a combination of tactical brilliance and uncompromising discipline. Her dark hair was cropped short for practicality, and her olive skin bore the marks of both battles and the harsh conditions of her Montana upbringing. "Captain, we're detecting an unusual transmission." Lieutenant Johnson's voice came through her comm unit. "It's using frequencies we've never encountered before, but the pattern suggests artificial origin." Reed's pulse quickened. "Source?" "Unknown, sir. It appears to be directed specifically at Earth, but our position intercepted it." "I'm on my way." The bridge of the Prometheus hummed with quiet efficiency as Reed entered. The crew, 30 of Earth's finest, worked with a focused precision that had made their ship the pride of the fleet. Reed had handpicked each member, drawing heavily from those with Deathworld upbringings. The hurricane alleys of Florida, the earthquake zones of Japan, the oxygen-thin Andean highlands. "Put it through," she ordered, taking her command chair. The message unfolded in multiple formats: visual, audio, and data streams that the ship's AI struggled to parse. But the essence was clear: a desperate plea for help from a species called the Vanni, facing extinction at the hands of the Korak Empire. "Authenticate," Reed commanded. "Could this be a trap or test?" Commander Stone, her XO and intelligence officer, shook his head. The complexity of the data and the uniqueness of the transmission method argue against fabrication. "Captain, the message includes stellar cartography that matches nothing in our databases, yet corresponds perfectly with regions beyond our current exploration range." Reed studied the star maps showing Vanni territory and the advancing Korak forces. "Options? Protocol dictates we relay this to Earth Command and await instructions," Stone replied. "First contact scenarios fall under direct Admiralty jurisdiction." Reed nodded. Earth had ventured into interstellar space only in the last century, establishing colonies on 17 worlds. They had encountered simple life forms, but never an advanced alien civilization. Humanity had always assumed they would initiate first contact when they were ready. Instead, first contact had come in the form of a desperate plea for military intervention. "Send the data packet to command," Reed ordered. "But calculate a course to these coordinates. I want to be in position to gather intelligence while we await orders." Lieutenant Johnson looked up from his console. "Captain, that's well beyond our patrol zone. Earth Command might view that as exceeding authority." Reed's expression hardened. "The Prometheus is an Explorer-class vessel with stealth capabilities. Our mandate includes reconnaissance in potentially hostile territory. We're not engaging. We're observing. Input the course." As the Prometheus slipped into hyperspace, Reed retreated to her quarters to review the message again. The details were horrifying. Systematic planetary bombardment. Civilian population centers targeted first. Medical facilities destroyed to maximize casualties. The Korak Empire operated with ruthless efficiency, their warships methodically reducing world after world to ash and rubble. Her comm unit chimed. "Captain, response from Earth Command," Stone's voice reported. "Admiral Brooks requests your immediate return to Earth for consultation. The Admiralty is convening an emergency session." Reed's jaw tightened. "Acknowledge the message. Inform the Admiral that we're conducting preliminary reconnaissance and will return with valuable intelligence." "Captain," Stone's hesitation was audible. "That could be interpreted as a direct contravention of orders. Note my personal responsibility in the log. Commander, the Vanni message indicates their nearest colony will fall within 72 hours. By the time we return to Earth and the Admiralty debates action, thousands more will die. I'm not engaging the enemy, just gathering information that will be critical to any decision Earth makes." After a pause, Stone replied, "Understood, Captain. Course maintained." 20 hours later, The Prometheus emerged from hyperspace, at the edge of the Vanni system described in the distress call. Reed had ordered minimal power signatures, their advanced stealth systems rendering them nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. "Deploy reconnaissance drones," Reed ordered. "Maximum stealth configuration, wide dispersal pattern." The data began flowing in almost immediately. Orbital imagery showed a once beautiful world scarred by bombardment. Cities lay in ruins, forests burned, and oceans were darkened with ash. In orbit, massive Korak warships maintained position, occasionally launching fresh salvos at the surface. "Population centers are being systematically targeted," Lieutenant Johnson reported, his voice tight. "There appears to be no attempt to preserve infrastructure or resources." "This isn't conquest," Reed observed grimly. "It's extermination." Commander Stone studied the tactical readouts of the Korak vessels. 200 warships in this system alone, Captain. Their technology appears advanced. Energy weapons, heavy armor plating, what look like short-range teleportation capabilities for troop deployment. Weaknesses. They rely on overwhelming force rather than tactical flexibility. Their formations are rigid, almost algorithmic. And there's something else. Stone manipulated the display. Their command and control appears highly centralized. Secondary vessels show limited independent action. Reed absorbed this information, her mind already forming the outline of a strategy. "Record everything. I want detailed scans of their weapon systems, propulsion, defenses, anything that might give us an edge." "Captain," Johnson interrupted, "we're detecting another Korak fleet entering the system. 5 heavy destroyers on an intercept course with an escaping Vanni vessel." The view screen showed a small, elegant ship streaking away from the planet, pursued by the much larger Korak warships. The Vanni vessel's engines flared with desperate intensity, but the outcome was inevitable. Reed's hands clenched on the arms of her command chair. "How many life signs aboard the Vanni ship?" "Approximately 300, Captain. Mostly civilian, based on the vessel class. 300 souls about to be extinguished." Reed had her orders. Observe only, return to Earth with intelligence. The rational choice was clear. Yet, as she watched the Korak destroyers close on their prey, something hardened in her chest. "Battle stations," she said quietly. The bridge crew froze momentarily, then erupted into controlled activity. "Captain," Stone cautioned. "Earth Command was explicit." "I'm aware, Commander." Reed's voice was ice. "Weapon status?" "Railguns charged. Missile tubes loaded. Shields at maximum. Plot an intercept course. Prepare to engage on my mark." The Prometheus surged forward, its stealth systems maintaining cover until they were within optimal strike range of the lead Korak destroyer. Reed studied the enemy formation, noting the predictable pattern Stone had identified. "Target the lead vessel's propulsion system. Fire." The Prometheus unleashed its first salvo. Hypersonic projectiles launched from electromagnetic railguns, followed by a spread of quantum-tipped missiles. The attack struck before the Korak ships had even registered their presence. The lead destroyer's engines exploded in a brilliant flash, sending it tumbling out of formation. The remaining Korak vessels reacted with surprising sluggishness, their rigid tactical programming struggling to account for an attack from an unexpected vector. "Evasive pattern Delta," Reed ordered. "Keep us moving. Target the second vessel's weapons array." The Prometheus danced through space, its human crew adapting instantaneously to changing conditions in ways the algorithmic Korak commanders could not match. 2 more destroyers sustained critical damage before they could coordinate an effective response. "The Vanni vessel is clear, Captain," Johnson reported. "They're accelerating to escape velocity." "The remaining Korak ships are launching fighters," Stone warned. 30 small craft, attack formation." Reed smiled thinly. "Just as I hoped. Deploy countermeasures. Let's show them what happens when you follow predictable patterns." The Prometheus released a cloud of micro-drones that mirrored its energy signature, creating dozens of false targets. The Korak fighters divided precisely, allocating resources with mathematical efficiency and complete tactical inflexibility. "Now," Reed ordered. The Prometheus cut through the confused fighter screen, its point defense systems eliminating threats, while its main weapons punched through the weakened defenses of the fourth destroyer. The fifth began a retreat, calling its fighters back to defensive positions. "Captain, the Vanny ship is hailing us," Johnson reported. A face appeared on the main view screen, similar to the ambassador from the distress message, but younger. His translucent skin glowing with what Reed assumed was emotion. "Unknown vessel," the Vanny said, his voice melodic despite the obvious tension. "You have saved our people when none would stand against the Korak. We are in your debt." "This is Captain Elise Reed of the Earth vessel Prometheus. We intercepted your people's distress call." The Vanny's large eyes widened. "The humans have answered. The Council actually contacted you?" "They did. We're gathering intelligence on the Korak threat. Is there somewhere safe you can take your people?" "Our final sanctuary world lies 3 systems distant. If we can reach it." The Vanny hesitated. "But the Korak will pursue. They always pursue." "Not this time," Reed assured him. "We've damaged their propulsion systems severely. By the time they regroup, you'll be long gone." She paused. "Can you transmit data on Korak fleet movements and Vanny refugee locations? My government needs complete information to determine our response." The Vanny inclined his head. "Everything we have is yours, Captain Reed. May your people bring the justice that the Council could not." After the Vanny ship departed, Reed ordered a strategic withdrawal. "Set course for Earth, maximum speed, and prepare a complete data package for Admiral Brooks. He's not going to be pleased, but I doubt he'll argue with results." As the Prometheus slipped into hyperspace, Reed knew she had crossed a line. Earth was now irrevocably involved in an interstellar conflict. The question remained whether her homeworld would embrace the challenge or retreat from it. But as she reviewed the footage of burning Vanny worlds and the methodical extermination of a peaceful species, Reed knew which side of that debate she would stand on. Some evils demanded confrontation, no matter the cost. Admiral Thomas Brooks glowered at Reed across the conference table in Earth Command headquarters, his weathered face lined by decades of service and the unforgiving Australian outback of his youth, betrayed a complex mixture of anger and reluctant admiration. "Do you have any idea what you've done, Captain?" he demanded. "You disobeyed direct orders, engaged an alien military force without authorization, and committed Earth to what could become an interstellar war." Reed met his gaze steadily. "I gathered critical intelligence and saved 300 civilians from certain death. The Korak would have eliminated those refugees without hesitation or mercy. And in doing so, you've revealed our existence and capabilities to a hostile empire that, by your own reconnaissance, controls hundreds of warships." Brooks gestured to the holographic displays, showing the Korak fleet movements compiled from Reed's data. "An empire that has already demonstrated a willingness to exterminate entire populations." The other admirals and generals around the table shifted uncomfortably. Earth's combined military forces had never faced an extraterrestrial threat. Their wars had been limited to internal colonial disputes and automated defense against natural threats like asteroid impacts. Sir," Reed replied. "The Korak were already targeting humanity by proxy. The Galactic Council's message made it clear. The Vanny are being exterminated because they refuse to provide medical technology that would extend Korak lifespans. They're being punished for adhering to ethical principles that humanity would recognize and respect." Brooks rubbed his temples. "Captain, I understand your moral position. What concerns this council is whether Earth has the capability to intervene effectively." "We do." Reed's response was immediate and confident. The engagement demonstrated critical weaknesses in Korak tactics and technology. They rely on overwhelming numbers and rigid battle doctrines. Their ships are powerful but inflexible, Their command structure is centralized and slow to adapt. She activated her own display, showing tactical analyses of the brief battle. These are advantages that human forces are uniquely positioned to exploit. Our military doctrine has always emphasized adaptability, individual initiative, and unconventional tactics. We're trained to function in environmental extremes that would incapacitate most species. And you believe these advantages outweigh their numerical superiority? General Hammond asked skeptically. I believe they create a window of opportunity, Reed clarified. The Korak aren't accustomed to resistance. Their conquests have targeted peaceful, technologically advanced civilizations that lacked military capabilities. We're different. Admiral Brooks studied the data in silence for several moments. Finally, he turned to the assembled leadership. The President has given this council temporary authority to determine Earth's response. Before we vote, are there any final arguments to be made? An older man at the far end of the table cleared his throat. Dr. Malcolm Chen, Earth's leading xenobiologist, had been brought in to assess the Vani physiology and culture. If I may, he said quietly, there's a dimension beyond the military considerations. The Vani are healers of extraordinary capability. Their medical knowledge exceeds our own by centuries, possibly millennia. The techniques described in their message could revolutionize human medicine, eliminating diseases we've struggled with for generations, extending lifespans, perhaps even regenerating damaged tissues and organs. He met each commander's gaze in turn. If we allow them to be exterminated, we lose not only a potential ally, but knowledge that could benefit humanity for ages to come. Silence fell over the room. Finally, Admiral Brooks straightened. I've made my decision. Captain Reed, you are hereby promoted to Commodore, with operational command of the 1st Intervention Fleet. You will take the Prometheus and 9 additional vessels to secure Vani refugee populations and assess the full extent of the Korak threat. He fixed Reed with a stern look. This is reconnaissance in force, Commodore. You are authorized to defend Vani civilians and engage Korak forces when necessary. But your primary mission remains intelligence gathering. Earth needs to understand exactly what we're facing before committing to full-scale intervention. Reed stood at attention. Understood, Admiral. When do we depart? The fleet is being assembled as we speak. You launch in 24 hours. Brooks' expression softened slightly. The burden I'm placing on your shoulders is enormous. Elise, the fate of 2 species may rest on your decisions. I won't let either down, sir. As Reed left the chamber to prepare her fleet, Admiral Brooks turned to the window overlooking the sprawling Earth Command complex. God help us if we've just picked a fight we can't win, he murmured. Dr. Malcolm Chen joined him at the window. If there's one thing I've learned studying life across our colonies, Admiral, it's that underestimating species from harsh environments is almost always a fatal mistake. He smiled grimly. The Korak are about to discover why Earth is classified as a death world. The 1st Intervention Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the coordinates provided by Vani refugees, a small, unremarkable star system near the edge of Korak territory. Intelligence suggested it contained a major Korak shipyard and fueling depot, critical to supporting their campaign against the Vani. Commodore Reed stood on the Prometheus's bridge, surveying the tactical display. Status report. 10 ships present and accounted for, Commodore. Commander Stone replied. All systems nominal. Stealth systems engaged. Scanners detecting significant Korak activity around the 4th planet, Lieutenant Johnson added. Orbital facilities match the profile of construction and maintenance infrastructure. Multiple warships docked or in close proximity. Reed studied the display, noting the patterns of movement around the facility. They haven't detected us. Good. Deploy reconnaissance drones and begin passive data collection. I want complete intelligence before we make any moves. Over the next 12 hours, The human fleet maintained position at the system's edge, while their drones gathered detailed information on Korak defenses, patrol patterns, and facility layouts. Reed assembled her captains via secure holographic link to develop their strategy. The shipyard is their strategic center of gravity, she explained, highlighting the massive orbital facility. It supports their eastern campaign against the Vani worlds. Without it, their supply lines extend by nearly 40 light-years. Captain Hernandez of the UES Valiant studied the rotating model. Frontal assault would be costly. Those defense platforms have significant firepower. Which is why we won't attack from the front, Reed replied with a tight smile. Captain Chen, your analysis of the planetary defense grid? Captain Linda Chen of the UES Shadow Dancer, the fleet's electronic warfare specialist, manipulated the display. Standard Korak algorithm, predictable sensor sweeps, automated response protocols. Nothing we can't handle. But there's something interesting on the surface. She highlighted a section of the planet below. Major ground facility. Appears to be their primary fuel processing center. Reed nodded. 2 targets. 1 operation. We'll divide our forces. Captain Chen, you'll lead the Shadow Dancer and 3 vessels in an electronic warfare assault on the orbital shipyard. Blind their sensors, disrupt their communications, and create the impression of a major fleet action. And while they're distracted, you hit the ground target, Hernandez concluded. Precisely. The Prometheus and the remaining ships will insert our marine units to sabotage the fuel facility. Reed's expression turned serious. This is a precision strike, not an extermination. Civilian casualties are to be avoided wherever possible. We're here to cripple their war machine, not mirror their atrocities. The operation began 18 hours later. The Shadow Dancer led its contingent toward the orbital shipyard, broadcasting phantom signatures that made 4 ships appear as 20. Simultaneously, they deployed electronic warfare measures that scrambled Korak sensors and communications. As the orbital defenses reoriented to face this apparent major assault, the Prometheus and its group accelerated toward the planet's surface, using its magnetic poles to mask their approach. Earth's Special Forces, the 21st Interstellar Marines, prepared for deployment. Sergeant Kelly Miller checked her squad's equipment one final time. At 35, Miller had served in Earth's harshest environments. The crushing depths of the Mariana Trench stations, the blistering heat of the Saharan research outposts, the toxic atmosphere of Venus's cloud cities. Like many Marines, she had been selected for her adaptability to extreme conditions. Remember, she addressed her 12 operators. These aren't human opponents. Standard tactics won't necessarily apply. Watch for patterns, exploit their rigidity, and stay unpredictable. Major James Cross, commanding the 48 Marine Insertion Team, nodded approvingly. Intelligence suggests minimal ground forces. The Korak rely heavily on orbital supremacy and automated defenses. Once we're past those, resistance should be limited to security personnel. With respect, Major, Miller replied, I've learned to expect the unexpected. That's why you're on point. Sergeant, Cross smiled grimly. Deployment in 2 minutes. Prometheus will create a diversion to cover our drop. Above the planet, the Korak orbital defenses had finally recognized the electronic warfare attack for what it was, but too late. The Shadow Dancers group had already disabled 2 defense platforms and was engaging the shipyard's perimeter defenses directly. Captain Chen's tactics were unorthodox by Korak standards: rapid direction changes, irregular weapons fire patterns, and frequent repositioning that left the enemy's targeting algorithms struggling to compensate. Meanwhile, the Prometheus initiated its part of the operation. Rather than attempting a stealthy approach to the surface, Reed opted for overwhelming speed. The ship plunged into the atmosphere at a velocity that would have torn apart less advanced vessels, its heat shields glowing white-hot. Multiple surface-to-air defenses activating, Johnson reported tensely. They're struggling to track our descent profile. Maintain course, Reed ordered, Deploy countermeasures and prepare for marine drop at Waypoint Alpha. The Prometheus screamed over a mountain range, sensors identifying the massive fuel processing facility nestled in a valley below. Anti-aircraft fire began to track toward them, but the ship's speed and electronic countermeasures kept it just ahead of the defensive fire. Drop zone approaching. Marines ready for deployment. In the launch bay, Sergeant Miller and her squad sealed their helmets. Their powered armor, designed for combat in extreme environments, would protect them during the high-altitude drop and subsequent operation. Each Marine carried conventional weapons, complemented by specialized equipment for sabotage operations. Drop in 3, 2, 1, execute! The bay doors opened, and 48 Marines plummeted toward the surface. Their armor's thrusters controlled their descent, dispersing the team to minimize targeting profiles. Miller's heads-up display tracked her squad's positions as they fell through layers of thin clouds. Surface defenses targeting drop pods. Her comm unit crackled with Lieutenant Johnson's voice from the Prometheus. Initiating suppression fire. Above them, the human vessel unleashed a barrage that systematically eliminated anti-aircraft positions around the facility perimeter. The Marines used this cover to adjust their landing trajectories directly toward the primary processing complex. Miller hit the ground in a controlled roll, her armor absorbing the impact. Around her, the rest of the team landed in a dispersed pattern across the facility grounds. Immediately, alarms began to wail. Charlie Squad, secure the perimeter. Major Cross ordered. Alpha and Bravo, proceed to primary targets. Miller led her squad toward the central processing hub, encountering the first Correct defenders, tall, heavily armored figures carrying energy weapons. The aliens moved with mechanical precision, taking standardized defensive positions. Predictable, Miller muttered. Flanking maneuver, execute. Her squad split instantly, creating confusion in the Correct defensive algorithm. While the aliens adjusted their formation to track one group, Miller's remaining team circled behind, neutralizing them with targeted fire. Their armor is tough but not impenetrable, Miller reported. Weak points at joint sections and sensor arrays. Similar reports came in from other squads. The Correct ground forces were formidable but inflexible, relying on pre-programmed responses rather than adaptive tactics. The Marines exploited this weakness mercilessly, using unconventional approaches and constant position changes to create confusion. Major Cross coordinated from a forward position. Main entrance secured. Engineering team, begin Phase 2. Specialized Marines deployed to key infrastructure points, planting compact fusion charges at critical junctures. Their objective wasn't simple destruction, but cascading system failures that would render the facility inoperable without causing catastrophic explosion or widespread environmental damage. Commodore, Cross reported to the orbiting Prometheus. Charges set. Estimated effectiveness. 87% capacity reduction for minimum 6 standard months. Confirmed. Major, Reed's voice replied. Begin extraction. The Shadow Dancer reports mission success at the orbital facility. Multiple construction bays disabled and 3 docked warships neutralized. As the Marines began their coordinated withdrawal, a new alarm sounded. Major, Miller called urgently. Sensors detecting large-scale movement from the subsurface levels. They've been holding back their main force. The facility's lower levels opened, disgorging hundreds of Karak warriors in heavy combat armor. Unlike the security forces, these troops moved with greater coordination and purpose. Change of plans, Cross decided instantly. Defensive positions. Trigger the charges now. We'll use the confusion for extraction. The engineering team activated the demolition sequence. Throughout the facility, precision explosions severed key systems, triggering emergency shutdowns and containment protocols. Massive processing towers began venting harmless, but visually dramatic plumes of gas and vapor. In the chaos, the Marines executed a fighting withdrawal, using the facility's own architecture to channel the pursuing Karak forces into predictable avenues. Miller's squad provided covering fire as other teams reached extraction points, where Prometheus's shuttles waited. Final squad withdrawing, Miller reported, backing toward her extraction point as Korak energy weapons scythed through the air around her position. Request suppression fire on coordinates marked. The Prometheus responded with pinpoint railgun strikes, collapsing a section of the facility between the Marines and their pursuers. Miller's squad used the momentary advantage to board their waiting shuttle, which immediately accelerated skyward. As the last Marines cleared the atmosphere, Reed ordered the fleet to regroup at the system's edge. The operation had been a complete tactical success, the shipyard severely damaged, the fuel facility crippled, and human casualties limited to minor injuries. "Begin jump preparations," she ordered. "We've struck a significant blow, but the Korak will adapt. We need to stay ahead of their response." As the fleet entered hyperspace, Reed knew they had just escalated the conflict dramatically. The Korak Empire now faced something it had never encountered, an enemy that could strike its core infrastructure with impunity, employing tactics that defied their algorithmic predictions. The real war had begun. The news of the human strike spread rapidly through Korak space. Emperor Vra, supreme ruler of the Korak Empire, received the reports in his throne room, a massive chamber adorned with trophies from conquered worlds. His elongated skull, marked with the ritual scars of conquest, darkened with rage as Admiral Kresh delivered his assessment. "The damage is substantial, Emperor," Kresh reported, his posture rigid with military discipline. "The Helix shipyard will require at least 3 standard cycles for repairs. The Nexus fuel facility operates at 22% capacity. Construction schedules for 14 capital ships have been disrupted." Vra's 6-fingered hand tightened on his ceremonial staff. "And these humans, what do we know of them?" "Limited information, Emperor. Their vessels employ technology comparable to our own, but with design philosophies we have not encountered. Their tactics defy standard prediction algorithms. Most concerning, they appear unaffected by environmental factors that would incapacitate most known species." "Deathworlders," Vra hissed the term. "The Council has found its attack dogs." He rose from his throne, towering over Kresh. "I want every available ship diverted to protect our core systems. Double the garrison at remaining production facilities. And send a punitive expedition to the nearest Vanni refugee world. Let these humans see the consequence of their interference." Kresh saluted. "It will be done, Emperor. I have already ordered a battle group to the Zeta Vanni colony. They will make an example of it." In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Talon addressed the assembled representatives. His appearance markedly improved since his desperate plea weeks earlier. Behind him stood Captain, now Commodore, Reed, representing Earth in its first official diplomatic contact with the Council. "The human intervention has given my people hope," Talon announced. "For the first time since the Korak onslaught began, Vanni refugees have safe passage to sanctuary worlds. 3 colonies have been evacuated ahead of Korak forces, saving over 2 million lives." The chamber erupted in a mixture of approving murmurs and concerned whispers. High Counselor Zev raised a hand for silence. "While we acknowledge these humanitarian successes," Zev said carefully, "reports of human military tactics raise concerns. Your forces have attacked Korak infrastructure directly, escalating what was previously a regional conflict." Reed stepped forward. "With respect, Counselor, the systematic extermination of the Vanni people was never a regional conflict. It was genocide, unopposed by this council despite your founding principles of mutual protection." Gasps and objections echoed through the chamber. Reed continued undeterred. "Earth did not seek this war. We responded to your request for assistance. Now that we're involved, we will not stand by while innocent populations are slaughtered. The Korak understand only strength. So strength is what we will show them." "And what gives your species the right to determine the course of galactic affairs?" demanded the Talarian representative, a crystalline entity hovering above its gravity plate. You were unknown to us mere months ago. Rights are earned through actions, Reed replied evenly. When the Vani called for help, we answered. When civilians faced extinction, we intervened. Earth seeks no territory, no political advantage, no resource extraction. We fight because it is right to oppose extermination and wrong to permit it through inaction. Ambassador Talon touched Reed's arm gently. If I may, Commodore. He turned to address the council. My people have begun working with human medical specialists to share our healing knowledge. Already, this exchange has yielded breakthroughs that benefit both species. This is the cooperation the Korak sought to destroy, different civilizations combining their strengths for mutual benefit. The debate continued for hours, with council members divided between those who welcomed human intervention and those who feared the introduction of another militaristic power into galactic politics. Eventually, High Counselor Zev called for order. The Council acknowledges Earth's assistance to the Vani people, he announced formally. We extend diplomatic recognition to humanity and grant observer status to Earth's representatives. He fixed Reed with a penetrating stare. However, we cannot officially sanction military action against the Korak Empire. The Council must maintain its position of neutrality. Reed nodded, unsurprised. Earth understands your position, Counselor. We will continue to act according to our conscience, with or without official sanction. As the session concluded, Ambassador Talon accompanied Reed to her shuttle. The Council fears what they do not understand, he said apologetically. Many species have never experienced the conditions of a death world. They cannot comprehend how such environments forge resilience. We're not seeking their approval, Ambassador, Reed replied. Just their non-interference. Earth Command is committing additional resources to the campaign. Admiral Brooks will be arriving with the main fleet within weeks. Talon's expression grew troubled. There is something you should know, Commodore. Our intelligence network reports a large Korak battle group approaching the Zeta colony, one of our largest refugee centers. Over 5 million Vani have sought shelter there. I fear this is retaliation for your strikes against Korak infrastructure. Reed's expression hardened. How long until they arrive? 3 standard days. The colony has begun evacuation, but many will not escape in time. Then we have 3 days to prepare a welcome they won't forget. The Zeta colony hung in space like a jewel, a terraformed moon orbiting a gas giant. Its surface covered with the elegant, crystalline structures characteristic of Vani architecture. In orbit, a steady stream of refugee ships departed, carrying as many civilians as possible to safety. Beyond the moon's horizon, the first intervention fleet waited in strategic positions, hidden behind the gas giant's rings and smaller moons. Reed had deployed her forces in a dispersed formation designed to converge on the approaching Korak fleet from multiple vectors. Status report, she requested from the Prometheus's bridge. Korak battle group detected at system's edge. Commander Stone reported. Composition: 1 command carrier, 8 heavy cruisers, 22 destroyers, and numerous support vessels. Estimated time to weapons range: 47 minutes. Reed studied the tactical display, noting the standard Korak formation, a rigid arrowhead with the command carrier at its center, protected by layers of supporting vessels. They're following doctrine precisely. No adaptation based on our previous encounters. Overconfidence, Stone suggested. They still believe their technological superiority will overcome our tactical advantages. Let's disabuse them of that notion. Reed opened a channel to the fleet. All vessels, final positions, Shadow Dancer Group, commence electronic warfare package on my mark. Marine boarding teams, stand ready. Remember, our priority is protecting the evacuation vessels. Engage when the Korak fleet reaches Waypoint Bravo. The minutes ticked by as the massive Korak armada approached the Vani moon. Their trajectory suggested a standard orbital bombardment pattern. They would establish a high orbit and systematically destroy the colony's infrastructure from above. "Evacuation status?" Reed asked. "Approximately 60% complete," Johnson replied. "Civilian transports continuing to depart at maximum capacity." Reed nodded grimly. "Not enough. We need to buy them more time." She keyed her command channel. "All ships, execute Operation Thunderstrike." The human fleet sprang into action with coordinated precision. The Shadow Dancer group activated their electronic warfare systems, flooding Korak sensors with false readings and phantom targets. Simultaneously, strike vessels launched from hiding positions around the gas giant, accelerating toward the Korak formation from multiple angles. The Korak responded predictably, adjusting their formation to present weapons batteries toward the most apparent threats. Their algorithms, designed for conventional space combat, struggled to prioritize among the confusing array of targets and sensor ghosts. "They're dispersing defensive fire," Stone reported with satisfaction. "Effectiveness reduced by approximately 40%. Reed leaned forward. "Execute Phase 2. From the Prometheus and 2 companion vessels, specially modified shuttles, launched toward the Korak flagship, the massive command carrier at the center of their formation. These shuttles, carrying elite Marine boarding teams led by Major Cross, utilize stealth technology and the ongoing electronic warfare to approach undetected. Meanwhile, the main human fleet engaged the outer Korak vessels directly. Unlike the methodical Korak approach, the human ships executed unpredictable maneuvers, accelerating and decelerating erratically, changing attack vectors mid-approach, concentrating fire on unexpected targets. Korak vessels 6 and 7 heavily damaged, Johnson reported. Their formation is destabilizing. On the main view screen, Reed watched as Korak destroyers attempted to maintain their programmed positions despite the chaos of battle. Their rigid adherence to doctrine became their greatest vulnerability, as one ship fell out of position. Others adjusted predictably, creating exploitable gaps. "Boarding teams have reached the command carrier," Stone announced. "Breaching actions in progress." Inside the massive Korak flagship, Major Cross led his Marines through the eerily geometric corridors. Unlike human vessels designed for crew comfort and accessibility, Korak ships prioritized algorithmic efficiency, straight lines, precise angles, and standardized layouts. "Central Command should be 17 levels up," Cross informed his team, consulting the schematic provided by Vani Intelligence. "Expect heavy resistance." Sergeant Miller, leading the point squad, encountered the 1st Defensive Unit, Korak warriors in shipboard combat armor, their weapons configured for internal defense. "Same patterns as groundside," Miller observed as her squad engaged them. "They're positioning according to standard defensive algorithms." The Marines exploited this predictability, using unorthodox approaches that confused the Korak defenders. Where the aliens expected frontal assaults, the humans attacked from ventilation systems. When the Korak adjusted to cover one approach, the Marines withdrew and struck from another direction. Level by level, the boarding team fought their way toward the command center. Their objective wasn't to capture the vessel, but to disrupt its command and control functions, severing the algorithmic coordination that made the Korak fleet effective. "Central Command, 2 corridors ahead," Miller reported, checking her armor's sensors. "Heavy energy signatures consistent with defensive systems." Cross nodded. "Deploy e-pulse devices, then breach on my mark." The specialized equipment, designed to temporarily disrupt Korak electronic systems, was placed at strategic points. When activated, the devices emitted focused electromagnetic pulses that cascaded through the ship's networks. Throughout the command carrier, systems flickered and reset. The momentary disruption was all the Marines needed. They breached the command center, encountering the ship's senior officers, including Admiral Kresh himself, recognizable by his elaborate rank insignia. "Secure the control systems," Cross ordered, as his team neutralized the Korak defenders. Plant the viral package and prepare for extraction. Marine technicians rushed to the central console, uploading a sophisticated computer virus designed to infect the Karak battle network. Once activated, it would transmit contradictory commands to the fleet, causing confusion and friendly fire incidents. Admiral Kresh, wounded but defiant, lunged toward an emergency control panel. Sergeant Miller intercepted him, her powered armor giving her the strength to restrain the larger alien. "Your primitive tactics cannot defeat the Empire," Kresh snarled in the galactic standard language. "We will exterminate your species as we are exterminating the Vani." "Difference is," Miller replied coldly, "we fight back." The virus upload completed, and Cross signaled for withdrawal. "Package delivered. All teams, return to extraction points. We have 7 minutes before system purge attempts." As the Marines fought their way back to their shuttles, the effects of the virus became apparent throughout the Karak fleet. Ships began firing on friendly vessels, defensive systems targeted Allied fighters, and formation integrity collapsed. Reed watched from the Prometheus as the once orderly Karak armada descended into chaos. "Press the advantage," she ordered the fleet. "Concentrate fire on their heavy cruisers. Keep them away from the evacuation route." The human vessels surged forward, exploiting the confusion to inflict maximum damage. Railguns punched through disoriented Karak vessels, whose shields were oriented in the wrong directions. Missiles found targets whose point defense systems were targeting phantom threats. "Boarding teams extracting," Stone reported. "Karak command network showing cascading failures." "Evacuation status?" Reed demanded. 83% complete. Civilian transports continuing to depart." Reed nodded with grim satisfaction. "That's enough. All vessels, execute disengagement protocol. Our objective was never to destroy their fleet, just to render it combat ineffective and protect the civilians." The human ships began a strategic withdrawal, maintaining covering fire to keep the Karak vessels disoriented and divided. By the time Admiral Kresh's technicians managed to purge the virus from their systems, the human fleet had escorted the last civilian transports to safety, leaving the Karak to lick their wounds around an empty moon. The Battle of Zeta Colony became the turning point in the war. For the first time, the Karak Empire had faced a decisive defeat, despite committing overwhelming forces. More importantly, the battle demonstrated that their rigid military doctrine, so effective against conventional opponents, was fundamentally vulnerable to human adaptive tactics. In the aftermath, Reed transmitted a message directly to Emperor Vra. "The Vani people are under Earth's protection. Any further attempts to target civilian populations will be met with increasingly severe responses. We do not seek the destruction of the Karak Empire, only the end of its campaign of extermination." The Emperor's response was predictable, a declaration of total war against both the Vani and their human allies. But the seed of doubt had been planted within the Karak military hierarchy. Admiral Kresh, having faced human combatants directly, began to question whether victory through conventional means was possible against such an unpredictable enemy. The war would continue, but its character had fundamentally changed. The hunter had become the hunted. 6 months into the conflict, the situation had evolved dramatically. Earth had committed significant resources to the campaign, deploying 3 full battle fleets under Admiral Brooks' overall command. The Karak Empire had withdrawn from Vani territory, focusing instead on fortifying their core systems and launching intermittent raids against human supply lines. In Earth Command headquarters, Admiral Brooks convened a strategic assessment with his senior officers. Commodore Reed, recently returned from the front lines, presented the latest intelligence. "The Karak are adapting," she explained, indicating star charts showing enemy fleet movements. "Their tactics remain algorithmic but with increased variability. They're learning from each engagement, incorporating elements of unpredictability into their battle doctrines." "Can they match our tactical flexibility?" General Hammond asked. Reed shook her head. "Not yet. Their military culture is too deeply rooted in centralized command and algorithmic efficiency. But they're becoming more dangerous as they integrate our methods into their framework. Admiral Brooks studied the displays thoughtfully. What's your assessment of Emperor Vra's position? Increasingly precarious, Reed replied. Our intelligence network reports growing dissent within the Korak hierarchy. Admiral Kresh leads a faction advocating for negotiation, arguing that the war has become unsustainable. The civilian bureaucracy supports this position, but Vra maintains control through loyalist military units. Brooks nodded slowly. Then we need to force the issue. Intelligence reports a massive fleet gathering in the Nexus system, 400 vessels, including their newest dreadnoughts. Appears they're planning a counteroffensive aimed at our forward bases. Conventional engagement would be costly, Reed observed. Even with our tactical advantages, those numbers would result in significant casualties, which is why we won't engage conventionally. Brooks activated a holographic tactical display. I'm proposing Operation Thunderbolt, a direct strike at the heart of their gathering fleet. 20 ships, our most advanced, will execute a precision hyperspace jump directly into their formation. The room fell silent. What Brooks proposed was considered theoretically possible, but practically suicidal. Hyperspace jumps were typically executed at safe distances from gravitational influences. Jumping directly into a fleet formation, surrounded by hundreds of massive vessels, risked catastrophic navigational errors. The risk is extreme, Admiral, General Hammond said quietly. Collision alone could destroy our vessels. Which is precisely why the Korak won't expect it, Brooks countered. Their algorithms dismiss options with casualty probabilities above certain thresholds. This operation falls well beyond those parameters. Reed studied the simulation. If, and it's a significant if, we can execute this precisely, the resulting confusion would be unprecedented. We could potentially neutralize a significant portion of their fleet before they organize an effective response. I need a commander willing to lead this operation, Brooks said, looking directly at Reed. Someone who understands both the risks and the potential reward. Reed met his gaze steadily. The Prometheus will lead the insertion. Admiral, I know my ship and crew can handle the precision requirements. Brooks nodded, unsurprised. I expected nothing less, Commodore. Select your task force and begin preparation immediately. If this succeeds, we may finally bring the Korak to the negotiating table. Operation Thunderbolt commenced 3 weeks later. 20 of Earth's most advanced warships, led by the Prometheus, approached the Nexus system under complete stealth. Long-range sensors confirmed the massive Korak armada gathered there. 400 vessels arranged in precise formations around the gas giant Nexus Prime. On the Prometheus's bridge, Reed reviewed the final calculations with her navigation officer. The margin for error is minimal, she told her assembled command staff. Our hyperspace emergence must be precisely coordinated. Each ship has been assigned specific coordinates within the Korak formation. Emergence tolerances are less than 100 meters. Commander Stone studied the tactical projections. Even if we execute perfectly, we'll be surrounded and outnumbered 20-1. We don't need to defeat their entire fleet, Reed reminded him. Just create enough damage and confusion to disrupt their offensive capabilities. Hit hard, hit fast, then extract before they can organize an effective response. She turned to address the entire bridge crew. I won't pretend this isn't the most dangerous operation we've attempted. The mathematics of hyperspace insertion at these tolerances. Well, there's a reason it's never been done before. Her expression hardened with resolve. But if we succeed, we save countless lives on both sides by bringing this war to a swifter conclusion. Reed opened a channel to the task force. All vessels, final positions. Hyperspace calculations locked. On my mark. Execute jump sequence. 20 acknowledgements came back. each ship's captain confirming readiness for what might be their final mission. Reed took a deep breath. Execute! The human vessels vanished into hyperspace simultaneously, their navigation systems executing the most precise calculations ever attempted for an interstellar jump. For a few heartbeats, they existed in the swirling quantum uncertainty of hyperspace, where the slightest deviation could result in catastrophe. Then, with a flash of energy that illuminated the Nexus system like a newborn star, 20 human warships materialized directly within the Korak formation. Their sudden appearance, materializing mere kilometers from enemy vessels, some emerging between ships in close formation, created instant chaos. Emergence successful, Johnson reported, his voice tight with controlled tension. Minimal deviation from target coordinates. All task force vessels accounted for. Reed had no time to celebrate the navigational miracle. Weapons free. Execute attack pattern Omega. The human vessels opened fire immediately, unleashing everything in their arsenals against the surrounding Korak ships. The enemy, caught completely by surprise, had no time to raise shields or orient weapons. Massive capital ships, their defenses directed outward in anticipation of a conventional attack, found themselves being torn apart from within their own formation. Korak communication networks in disarray, Stone reported. They're struggling to comprehend our insertion point. On the tactical display, Reed watched as the disciplined Korak formation dissolved into confusion. Ships attempting to maneuver collided with one another. Command protocols, designed for conventional engagement scenarios, issued contradictory orders. Admiral Kresh's flagship, caught at the periphery of the formation, attempted to establish control, but found itself unable to transmit coherent commands through the chaos. Multiple Korak capital ships disabled, Johnson announced. Their formation is collapsing inward. The human task force executed their attack with ruthless efficiency, targeting propulsion systems, weapons arrays, and command nodes. Rather than attempting to destroy vessels outright, they focused on rendering them combat ineffective, maximizing the strategic impact of each strike. Korak vessels beginning organized response, Stone warned after 15 minutes of one-sided devastation. Peripheral units coordinating counterattack. Reed nodded. They had expected this. Even the rigid Korak doctrine would eventually adapt to the unprecedented situation. Begin Phase 2. All vessels, disengage and prepare for hyperspace extraction. The human ships began fighting their way outward from the center of the formerly organized Korak fleet, creating corridors for escape. As they did, they deployed specialized munitions, quantum charges designed to disrupt hyperspace fields in their wake, preventing immediate pursuit. Extraction coordinates locked, Johnson confirmed. Hyperspace clearance in 30 seconds. On the main view screen, Reed watched as a massive Korak dreadnought oriented its main weapons toward the Prometheus. Evasive maneuvers, she ordered calmly. Maintain extraction course. The Prometheus shuddered as glancing fire from the dreadnought's energy weapons impacted its shields. Return fire from 2 supporting human vessels struck the Korak behemoth's command tower, sending it listing to one side. Hyperspace clearance achieved, Johnson reported. All surviving task force vessels in position. Reed opened the command channel one final time. All ships, execute jump. 19 vessels. They had lost the UES Defiant to concentrated enemy fire, vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a scene of unprecedented devastation. Nearly a third of the Korak armada lay crippled or destroyed. The remainder, their formation shattered and command structure in disarray, would require weeks to reorganize. Operation Thunderbolt had succeeded beyond their most optimistic projections. The Korak counteroffensive, meticulously planned and prepared, had been neutralized in less than 30 minutes of combat. As the Prometheus emerged from hyperspace at the rendezvous point, Reed allowed herself a moment of somber satisfaction. The human task force had suffered losses. One ship destroyed, others damaged, good people killed or wounded, but the strategic victory was undeniable. "Transmit after-action report to Admiral Brooks," she ordered. "Include my personal recommendation that we immediately open diplomatic channels to the Korak Civilian Authority. This defeat will strengthen Admiral Kresh's position within their hierarchy. We need to give the peace faction something concrete to work with." The consequences of Operation Thunderbolt reverberated throughout the galaxy. Within the Korak Empire, the disaster shattered Emperor Vraz's aura of invincibility. Admiral Kresh, leveraging the catastrophic defeat, orchestrated a military coup with broad support from the civilian bureaucracy and war-weary population. 3 weeks after the battle, representatives from Earth, the Vani Confederation, and the transitional Korak government met aboard a Galactic Council diplomatic vessel. Admiral Brooks led the Earth delegation, with Commodore Reed and Ambassador Talon at his side. Across the table sat Admiral Kresh, now Interim Chancellor Kresh, flanked by Korak civilian administrators. "The terms are straightforward," Brooks stated after preliminary formalities. "The Korak Empire will withdraw all military forces from Vani territory and recognize their sovereignty. Reparations will be paid to fund the rebuilding of destroyed Vani worlds. War criminals, specifically those who ordered and executed attacks on civilian targets, will face justice under Galactic Council law." Kresh studied the human admiral with newfound respect. "And what does Earth demand for itself? Territory, resources, technology?" "Nothing," Brooks replied simply. "Earth entered this conflict to stop genocide, not to acquire territory or resources. Once the Vani are secure and the threat of extermination eliminated, our military forces will withdraw from Korak space." Disbelief flickered across Kresh's features. "You expect me to believe your species fought a war for purely altruistic reasons? No civilization does that." Reed leaned forward. "Chancellor, you've faced us in battle. You've seen what humans are capable of. If territorial expansion had been our goal, we could have pushed deep into Korak space after Operation Thunderbolt. Instead, we're sitting at this table," Ambassador Talon added. "The Vani and humans have already begun medical and scientific exchange programs that benefit both our peoples. This cooperation, freely given, not coerced, represents the future we envision for all species." Kresh considered this for several moments, then nodded slowly. "The transitional government accepts these terms in principle. But understand this: the Korak people will not tolerate permanent occupation or humiliation." "None is intended," Brooks assured him. "Earth has no desire for an extended military presence in this region. Our forces will withdraw progressively as the terms are implemented." The negotiations continued for days, hammering out specific details of withdrawal timelines, reparation schedules, and verification protocols. Throughout the process, Reed observed a gradual shift in the Korak representative's demeanor, from wary hostility to cautious respect. On the final day, as the formal peace treaty was prepared for signing, Chancellor Kresh approached Reed privately. "Commodore, there is a question I must ask," he said, his voice pitched low. "During our engagements, your forces consistently targeted our military capabilities while minimizing civilian casualties. Even Operation Thunderbolt, devastating as it was, focused on disabling rather than destroying our vessels. Why? Total war would have been more efficient." Reed met his gaze steadily. "Because the purpose of war, if it must be fought at all, is to achieve peace, not extermination. Earth has fought its own bloody conflicts throughout history. We've learned that how you win determines the peace that follows." Kresh nodded slowly. "A perspective worth consideration." He hesitated, then added, "The Korak have much to reevaluate about our place in the galaxy. Perhaps there are approaches beyond algorithmic efficiency and military dominance." "That," Reed replied with the ghost of a smile, "would be a victory greater than any fleet action." One standard year after the signing of the peace treaty, Representatives from across the galaxy gathered on the rebuilt Vani homeworld for the unveiling of a memorial. The crystalline structure, designed jointly by Vani, human, and Korak artists, captured and refracted sunlight into a spectacular array of colors that danced across the assembled crowd. Ambassador Talon, recently elected as the first Prime Minister of the Vani Confederation, addressed the gathering. This memorial honors all who suffered and sacrificed during the conflict, Vani, human, and Korak alike. It stands not as a monument to victory or defeat, but as a reminder of what we can achieve when we recognize the value in our differences, rather than fearing them. Admiral Brooks and Commodore Reed represented Earth at the ceremony, their formal uniforms contrasting with the flowing robes of the Vani officials and the geometric attire of the Korak delegation. Chancellor Kresh had sent his deputy, a promising reformer who spoke of a new era in Korak society, one that valued adaptability alongside efficiency. As the memorial was officially dedicated, Reed studied the inscription, etched into its base in multiple languages. When evil seemed unstoppable, someone answered the call for help. Ambassador Talon joined her after the formal proceedings. "Your people have changed the course of galactic history, Commodore. The Council speaks now of a human paradigm, the idea that strength brings responsibility rather than privilege." Reed smiled slightly. "We're not saints, Ambassador. Earth has its own history of conflicts and mistakes. But perhaps being from a death world gives us a perspective others lack, the understanding that survival often depends on cooperation as much as strength." "Will your ships remain in our sector?" Talon asked. "Some will. Admiral Brooks has established a permanent patrol route along the borders of Vani space, not because we expect trouble, but to ensure it doesn't arise. The Prometheus departs tomorrow for a new mission." "Exploration rather than war?" Reed nodded. "That was always our primary purpose. There's an entire galaxy out there, filled with wonders and civilizations we've yet to encounter. Some may be friendly, others hostile. Either way, humanity will be ready." As the ceremony concluded and the diverse crowd began to disperse, Reed found herself standing alongside a young Vani child who stared up at her with wide, curious eyes. "Are you really from a death world?" the child asked, in carefully practiced human English. Reed knelt to the child's level. "That's what others call it. To us, it's simply home." "Were you scared, fighting the Korak?" Reed considered the question seriously. "Yes. Fear is natural when facing danger. The key is not letting fear prevent you from doing what's necessary." The child nodded solemnly. "My parent says humans answered when no one else would. That makes you heroes." Reed smiled gently. "Not heroes, just people who couldn't stand by while others suffered. That's not unique to humans. It exists in all thinking beings. Sometimes, it just needs a catalyst to bring it forth." As Reed rejoined her colleagues for the return journey to their ship, she gazed up at the starfield visible through the Vani city's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, Earth continued its own journey, forever changed by contact with the wider galaxy. And the galaxy, too, had been changed by contact with humanity, reminded that strength, without compassion, was merely power, while strength, guided by moral purpose, could remake worlds. The Prometheus waited in orbit, its mission now exploration rather than war. But Reed knew that somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other civilizations faced their own struggles against oppression or extinction. If the call came again, humanity would answer. After all, that's what Deathworlders did.